Hey guys, what's up? MurderofBirds here, and this episode of the World of Remnant segment was that of the Creatures of Grimm. Now, I know, I've been talking about it for 3 weeks. I was like, they have to do the next World of Remnant segment with the Creatures of Grimm. The context clues are there. We've got so many hints to new Grimm. We just got introduced to the Goliaths and the Creatures of Grimm that we know thus far, and we got it, and I was so freaking hyped. I was so gassed. A little bit different than what I was initially expecting, but we did get a lot of information. I would honestly say that this was the best World of Remnant segment thus far. We got introduced to Dust, we got introduced to the Kingdoms, and this episode, the Creatures of Grimm, we learn about the history, their tendencies, as well as the overall nature of how they function and, you know, the whole structure amongst the Creatures of Grimm thus far. This is also going to be the last Creatures of Grimm that's going to be showcased for the RWBY series. Next week will be episode 11, and the series will the series finale for the volume finale for episode 12 will be on October 30th. To where the follow-up week, November 5th, the Blu-ray DVDs will be on sale. They will be distributed, and we will have a fourth exclusive World of Remnant segment, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be based on semblances, just because there's a lot of references to those as well regarding Jean and regarding, you know, a semblance to an, what's an aura, what's a semblance to an aura, how does that function, all that stuff. So I'm pretty confident that the next World of Remnant that will be exclusive to the Blu-ray DVD will be on aura and semblances in somewhat of that regard. But for this World of Remnant, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but for this World of Remnant, we were given some very informative details and information on the Creatures of Grimm. So the Creatures of Grimm, we already know them. The number one adversary, the true natural enemy of humanity, got introduced to them in somewhat shape or form in the first episode of the series, learning that humans were born into the World of Remnant through the byproduct of dust, and that they were born into the world of darkness with the Creatures of Grimm. Now, first and foremost, we didn't get any type of origin story of where the Creatures of Grimm came from. What are they a byproduct from? You know, since humanity was created from dust, where did the Grimm come from? You know, darkness couldn't always just exist. And the tendencies and the nature of the Creatures of Grimm in this episode made me feel like the Creatures of Grimm are otherworldly, that they aren't initially from the World of Remnant. And to some degree, I'm just going out on a limb here, and I'm going to say, from the way that it's been expressed and the emphasis that they use on it, I want to say that the Creatures of Grimm come from the moon. Now, the moon is referenced a lot. Soundtrack songs of the RWBY series, Volume 1 soundtrack, and as well as the song Die. The moon is referenced a lot. And I feel like the cracks in the craters in the moon say a lot more about its, about the story of the moon than just for visual effects and stuff like that. Maybe a chunk of it came out and hit the earth, and the Creatures of Grimm initially inhabited the moon, and that part went to Remnant, and that's how they started spreading around the world. But I feel like the moon and the Creatures of Grimm are very connected. I don't really have that much, details to support that, or I don't have evidence to support that. But it's just a hunch that I have. But yeah, so we got to learn about the nature and tendencies of the Creatures of Grimm. Very informative in the sense of, learning about how the Grimm live and how they've thrived and survived for so long, and just, a lot of weird scenarios regarding that. First and foremost, the Creatures of Grimm only attack humans and human-based structures and settlements. They don't necessarily attack animals other than for territorial purposes, which that's understandable for any type of animal. Now, that says a lot, because it's like, if your only goal is to attack humans, how are these Creatures of Grimm going about it? You know what I mean? Do they have some type of hive mind mentality where they all are aware that we are attacking humans, we are only killing humans? Because I feel like, I don't know. I feel like the Grimm, the younger Grimm, like they reference, the younger Grimm, they just attack relentlessly. They don't have that much intellect. But for the Grimm to go out of their way to just attack humans and no other type of species, or even to eat humans and no other species, that just, it seems a bit iffy to me on, the whole backstory of the Creatures of Grimm. Another weird thing that's just as weird is the fact that the Creatures of Grimm choose, keyword, choose to eat. They don't eat for sustenance, and from research and stuff like that and beliefs, it's said that the Creatures of Grimm don't need to eat at all. They don't need any form of sustenance from humans or animals alike. That, to me, it's like the Creatures of Grimm are a lot more intelligent than they're showcased, in the sense of, I feel that they are a hive mind mentality. They have a hive mind mentality where they all you know, learn from one another, and maybe that there is some overall hierarchy of Grimm, or even some, I don't know, I this part are like a different species, like an alien-like species, to where they're able to make decisions and actions amongst themselves, and there's no type of chain of command of lower tier Grimm or upper echelon Grimm who have intellect and are the ones that are giving the orders for the lower tiers. Now, amongst all of this, and we learned about the Creatures of Grimm that when they die, they dissolve. They dissolve into they evaporate essentially. So there's no trace of them, and that doesn't really help out in the sense of research of trying to learn more about them and all that stuff. Now, amongst all of these things, of the fact that the Creatures of Grimm only attack humans, they attack humans, they destroy human settlements, they're the natural enemies of humans, they choose to eat, they don't need sustenance, and they dissolve after death. All of these concepts remind me of a very particular anime. For any of you guys out there who know, Shingeki no Kyojin, aka Attack on Titan, has these same similarities to the Titans in the anime. The Titans in Attack on Titan destroy human settlements. They essentially have a goal of wiping out humanity to where they eat humans. They don't need to eat. They don't reproduce. When they die, they also dissolve. And all of this just, I feel like Miles, Carey, or even Monty, who write the story of, you know, the story and plot of RWBY, they got this in particular influence from Attack on Titan. I'm not going to say they bit off Attack on Titan in that regard, but I will say that there are a lot of similarities to where I feel like this is also an homage, kind of like how the characters of the series are homages to old, you know, fairy tale type of characters. I would also say that the concept of the Creatures of Grimm is an homage to something as great as Attack on Titan. So initially, that's essentially how we got the tendencies, you know, and we learned about a little bit more about the nature of the Creatures of Grimm. Unfortunately, one of the big things for me, I'm sorry, I have like a really bad throat today. Unfortunately for this World of Remnant, one of the big things that I was looking forward to is a showcase of new Grimm, which unfortunately we didn't get. However, we did get a silver lining in the sense that it was mentioned that new Grimm are discovered every single day. And to me, that was essentially confirmation that there is more than just the 7 Creatures of Grimm that we know of, more than just the Ursa and the Beowulfs and the Goliath that we just got showcased 2 episodes ago. And I'm really looking forward to them. We got, obviously, reference of the subterranean Grimm last episode from RWBY and his history of Mountain Glen and its inevitable downfall, to where I'm hoping that we even get them showcased, because the situation and the scenarios of right now of Mountain Glen are really pivotal to where the Creatures of Grimm, the new Creatures of Grimm, coming off from a World of Remnant segment about the Grimm, they could be showcased, the subterranean Grimm, whether they're spiders or giant molds or giant worms or anything like that. I feel like that would just be a really good follow-up to a Creatures of Grimm segment, you know, regarding the subterranean Grimm as they were referenced to, and the setting is in the same particular spot. So from there, we also get reference to the negative emotions that play a role when it comes to the Creatures of Grimm and their nature and stuff like that. From episode 9 as well, RWBY's little history lesson talking about the nature of the Creatures of Grimm, that they are attracted to negative emotion, which is why a majority of them are congregating around Mountain Glen because of the White Fang's tendency, you know, the White Fang's whole mentality of wanting revenge and wanting to wipe out humanity as well. So we get a little bit of insight of that, but we also get a little bit more insight as to how particularly the people of Mountain Glen inevitably, you know, met their fate. They mentioned that obviously the negative emotion is something that calls to more Grimm. More Grimm are attracted to negative emotion, and that the widespread panic of Mountain Glen, you can obviously infer that the widespread panic of Mountain Glen, of, you know, them not having natural barriers, of the Creatures of Grimm just overrunning them to where they had to go underground, and then the underground tunnels were destroyed and more Creatures of Grimm came. The overwhelming amount of panic amongst the people of having no way out, that could have just called hundreds upon hundreds of Grimm to just wipe that city, you know, clean of humans and or of any type of life. And in a sense, it is kind of scary, because when you think about it, the nature of the Grimm kind of works like an infection. If you are, you know, if you're a group of 10 people and you're fighting off Grimm, and one person gets nervous and they express that type of nervousness or that type of panic amongst the rest of the group, that's just going to radiate amongst everyone else to where the Grimm will essentially overthrow you, even if you have a strength in numbers, which that's very, very scary and unsettling to know about the Creatures of Grimm, and to know that there are so many more out there to where you'd have to essentially you'd have to essentially learn how to fight each one differently. You know, I mean, to fight a Beowulf is different to fighting a Goliath. You know what I mean? So not only do you have to worry about being overrun and having to keep your wits about you and, you know, keep your composure in the heat of the moment, in the heat of battle, but at the same time, with the new source of Creatures of Grimm that, you know, essentially we're referenced to, you'd also have to take into consideration how you're going to fight each one. You know, what's the strength and weakness of one compared to another. So very informative, and like I said, just a recap, you know, a refreshing of the negative emotions, but on a little bit of a more deeper meaning in terms of Mountain Glen and what Uplek didn't showcase. Now, for where we are right now in the anime, where we are right now in terms of the setting, I feel like this is going to be a setup to, you know, like I said, to the subterranean Creatures of Grimm, etc., for multiple reasons. Number one, they're at Mountain Glen right now. They're RWBY and the White Fang are underground to where Uplek and the remaining team RWBY is going to go down and try to save her and, you know, deal with the White Fang, this, that, and the other. And if you guys remember in episode 9, or episode 10 rather, it showed the White Fang members. It showed like the mechs that they had down there, and it also showed what looked like to be bombs. Now, we already know that the subterranean Grimm obviously live underground, and they've been to Mountain Glen before. And the reason why they overran Mountain Glen is because of an explosion in one of the caverns opened up a new cavern where the subterranean Grimm were inhabiting. The bombs that are there right now, I feel like it's going to start all over again. And the White Fang members that are there, maybe Torchwick will make it out, Team RWBY will make it out, but I feel like there's going to be it's going to essentially be history repeating itself of an explosion happening due to the White Fang's tech there, and the subterranean Grimm are going to flood the place to where they're going to have to deal with the White Fang or Team RWBY, and they're all going to have to get out of there. So that's something else. I feel like that's going to be set up for episode 11 and initially episode 12, because I feel like episode 11 is going to be Uplek going in against Uplek and Team RWBY going up against the White Fang, and then episode 12 will probably be introduced to a new type of Grimm, to where, you know, the whole overall scheme of things is trying to get out of there alive and return back to Beacon and all that stuff. So I feel like that's how the last 2 episodes are going to go. Obviously, it's going to be hype. It's going to be action worthy because the last 2 episodes wrapping up the volume 2. So I'm really hoping we get something like that as well. Lastly, we learned that we have very little information on the Creatures of Grimm. Now, in terms of the origin of the Creatures of Grimm, like I said, I feel like I'd go on a limb and say that the Creatures of Grimm initially came from the moon, that the moon's reference is a lot more deeper than what than what is just being led on. The moon is referenced a lot in the soundtrack of Volume 1. Volume 2, for Die at least, it's been referenced to. And, you know, it's been showcased, you know, it has cracks, it has caverns, it has craters in the moon, and I feel like that's just a lot more emphasis than just there for for visual appeal. So I feel like maybe the Creatures of Grimm initially came from the moon, but obviously since mankind was born into the world after Grimm were around, we wouldn't really know unless we got a little bit more detail. Professor Port got exposed as well. I thought that was so funny. I thought that was the funny. Obviously, it was a very humoristic moment of, you know, learning that the Creatures of Grimm aren't very easily held in captivity, and even if they die, they disappear. Essentially, they evaporate. To where Professor Port, you know, he hunts Creatures of Grimm for sport, and, you know, all the stories that he has in class about in Volume 1 particular about, you know, having the Grimm in captivity and going back to his village with his head held high and all that stuff, and having displays of the Creatures of Grimm on his walls. That's all bluster. That's all smoke and mirrors, because initially that's not how it actually goes down. And I thought that was very funny. I felt really bad. I was like, damn, Professor Port, you got exposed this episode. But I thought that was kind of funny in all seriousness. And lastly, the Creatures of Grimm in terms of their intellect. Again, Uplek taking us to school in episode 9, telling us about the Goliaths, how they've lived for so long, and how essentially them living and learning from their endeavors with humanity has caused them to learn and essentially to be able to adapt to humans, to where if they fight, they'll have a better chance of survival, this, that, and the other. We also got reference that, you know, other Creatures of Grimm are just like the Goliaths, to where they live longer and they essentially evolve to where they have like those bones in them. I guess the bone structures symbolize their evolution, and I guess the bigger the bone spikes, the longer that they've lived. To where you can even say that the earliest they referenced this to was Volume 1 with that giant Ursa that Jean Arc went up against when he protected Cardin in Volume 1. That Ursa probably lived way longer than the standard Ursa, you know, that Yang and Blake took care of in Volume 1, because it was a lot bigger. It had it had giant spikes in its back and stuff like that, to where you can honestly say that essentially that was the earliest reference to where evolution and stuff like that took its course. And you could reference that from this World of Remnant, where the Beowulf that was showcased was small, and as it, you know, as Jen Taylor was narrating, you can see its transition into a bigger, spikier version of a Beowulf. So that as well, in terms of, you know, just the mentality and the intellect of the Creatures of Grimm. They're not just mindless killing machines. They actually learn and adapt as they survive and thrive. To where I feel like that surviving and thriving and intellect is a lot more, I feel like it just has a lot deeper presence than just right now. I feel like there's a lot more Creatures of Grimm out there who are even more intellect. Maybe some are even sentient and have, you know, speech or something like that, that command the underlings. Because like I said, the Attack on Titan concept, another concept of Attack on Titan, spoiler alert, is that some of the Titans in Attack on Titan are actually humans who are the ones that are calling the shots. So in that regard, I'm wondering if they also adapted that concept of, okay, there's other Creatures of Grimm, but some of them are, you know, I don't know, sentient. Some of them have human speech, have human capabilities, or anything like that, or maybe even humans in the flesh. That'd be pretty insane. But other than that, this World of Remnant segment was very informative, probably the best informative one thus far, of learning about the Creatures of Grimm, their nature, their tendencies, all that stuff in between. Other than this World of Remnant segment, we have 2 canon episodes remaining of RWBY Volume 2 next Thursday, and then the finale being on October 30th, right before Halloween. And then the following week, the 5th of November, is when the Blu-ray DVD goes on sale, to where there will also be an exclusive World of Remnant segment included in that. I will be bringing reviews to that to my channel, whether you guys get it or not. So if you guys want to check it out, I get it. Like I said, I feel like it's going to be on either Aura or Semblances, one or the other. But yeah, other than that, I really like this World of Remnant segment. Hopefully we get some more details on the Creatures of Grimm in these last 2 episodes. Those subterranean Grimm, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope you guys enjoyed the World of Remnant segment. Thank you guys so much. If you guys can leave a thumbs up, comment your take on the World of Remnant, anything I had to say, and be sure to subscribe if you're new to my channel. I'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much for checking out my video, and I will catch you guys next week. Take care.